Well, Scott, tonight, federal officials say 30-year-old Keith Holmes of Rochester faces serious federal charges after a shootout with U.S. Marshals Task Force attempting to serve an arrest warrant in Buffalo. U.S. Attorney Michael DiGiacomo says members of the U.S. Marshals Task Force showed up to a home on Glenwood Avenue on Buffalo's east side to arrest Holmes for allegedly violating his federal probation. They say he served 4 years in prison on fentanyl trafficking and gun charges in Maine before his sentence was commuted by President Biden in December of 2024. Once officers arrived Monday, investigators say Holmes started shooting using a ghost gun and shot through a bedroom door. No members of law enforcement were hit, but instead, officials say the bullet actually struck a marshal's ballistic shield.
Thank goodness no marshal or deputy marshal was harmed. And part of it is due to the fact that the shield protected that marshal as that marshal was standing outside the door where Mr. Holmes began to fire.
As the investigation continues here, we've also learned Holmes is a person of interest in a homicide investigation in Rochester. Investigators say 29-year-old Majesty Montgomery was found dead in Yates County in May. And investigators in Rochester believe she was killed inside of her Rochester home. Investigators back here in Buffalo did not say if Holmes will face additional charges in connection to this Rochester investigation. They also did not say why he was in Buffalo or if body camera footage will be released. We will continue to work to get those answers. On your side, Alyssa Clausel, Channel 2 News.
Scott, one community leader says this incident and other recent shootings have put everyone on high alert. Neighbors say they are praying for the family of the victim. Police say around 10:15 last night, officers responded to Hager Street after hearing reports of shooting. Authorities say they found a child with a gunshot wound to the shoulder. He was taken to Children's Hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The president of Buffalo Fathers, a local community organization, says violence prevention and gun safety efforts are needed in Western New York to combat the issue. One neighbor says last night he saw 3 police cars outside of his home. He says he's concerned for the family.
This area everybody is usually peaceful, so. It was shocking to see that many police at one time in this area.
We don't want to look at this as something that's ordinary, that's something that we can just walk away and forget about. We're just praying for the family. We're praying for the family.
Community leaders say they have some concerns about gun-related incidents in the last 2 months. They believe the presence of guns throughout the community, coupled with a lack of gun safety education, is creating some problems. Buffalo police say further details, including charges filed, will soon be released. And the department released a statement reading, in part, "We would like to thank the U.S. Marshals Service for their assistance in apprehending the suspect." On your side, Chelsea Swift, Channel 2 News.
Tonight, a debate at a Cheektowaga Town Board meeting. At the center of it all, a company called Flock.
This is something worth reiterating time and time again. Flock does not sell customer data.
Police Chief Brian Coons wants to use $10,000 in grant funds to buy 2 more high-tech license plate reading cameras. He says they're going to help the department solve even more crimes than they already have.
From 2023 to 2026, using Flock, we have 571 successful interventions with stolen cars, resulting in 376 offenders being arrested. We went from a 25.1% to a 58.7% capture efficiency in that time period.
Some members of the public believe their privacy is at risk.
It's bad enough when law enforcement engages in mass surveillance, but to have such data flowing through a private company creates an additional set of incentives for abuse.
And in my time, I have worked on hundreds of web servers, point-of-sale systems, and security camera systems. And it is due to my experience in the cybersecurity of these matters that I am appalled by the lack of security of Flock cameras.
Councilmember Stephen Nowicki agrees.
I don't think us, the Cheektowaga Town Board, or our larger government at all, reserves the right to sell to a private company the data of everyone who comes through our town without any oversight.
But other residents say these cameras have already solved crimes that, if not for Flock, would cost taxpayers thousands.
A crazy person broke into one of our buildings and stole one of our fire trucks. Luckily, Flock helped find our fire truck. I don't even know how much it was worth, $60,000, $70,000.
And Chief Coons believes everyone's safety could be at risk without more cameras.
We identify and solve crimes faster, saving overtime costs, not to mention the cost of stolen property that is found and returned. I encourage you to pass this resolution so we can continue the fight and bring justice to crime victims in our town.
As more air conditioners start humming, along with heat pumps and some already operational data centers boosting demand for more and more electricity, coupled with the state's climate action policies for electrification and renewable energy, which took more fossil fuel generation stations offline, even with the governor's recent budget action to slow down some of the climate law goals, there are questions for the summer season about the state's power supply. The New York Public Service Commission put out a press release in May noting that the electric system is equipped to meet customer needs, but even they acknowledge that the surplus energy supply to handle more demand is actually half of what it was last summer. And the New York State Independent System Operator, which monitors and helps operate the power grid to ensure supply, is much more direct, noting that the reliability margin has narrowed and that extreme weather with older generating systems pose significant risk to that reliability, especially if there would be 3 or more days of 95-degree temperatures and a heat wave. They go on to say the independent system operator might have to use emergency procedures with customer conservation to ease the power supply situation. This contrast in assessments, no surprise for a Southern Tier lawmaker.
The independent system operators, and quite frankly, even people that report directly to the governor, have been sounding the alarm. The Public Service Commission, is an appointments by the governor, and the governor knows that people are concerned about this. But the independent system operators is probably, I would say, the most honest in this scenario, and they've been sounding the alarm because they don't want to be blamed if, God forbid, we have a massive blackout. Imagine they've already said if we have more than 2 or 3 consecutive days of 90+ degrees, which happens in New York City all summer long, that we could see major blackouts.
If you suspect because of your symptoms or, because you know that you've been exposed to measles, that you have an infection, you need to get tested.
But call ahead so the office can prepare so others aren't exposed. Here's what we know about confirmed case 1.
Was a child that was not immunized and did travel outside of the United States, actually to a place in the world where they're having a huge measles outbreak.
The second confirmed case?
In an unimmunized young child who has no travel history.
So far, health officials determined this about both cases.
We've not found any relationship, any contact between them or their family members. However, since this second case, we have not discovered an identifiable source. That means there is at least one person walking around in the community that has measles and has been infecting at least one other person.
And both of the infected kids did go to the same healthcare facility, but they were never there at the same time. Measles is a concern here and across the country.
Less than halfway through the year, we have almost as many measles cases reported in the United States as we did for the whole 2025.
As for the 2 people with measles,
both at home and recovering.
The list of places and times where the infected visited is in this story on WGRZ.com.
Are you concerned that there could possibly be more cases?
Yes, of course I am. And we're vigilant and on the lookout.
On your side in Buffalo, Claudine Ewing, Channel 2 News.
There are times when it's so hard to find the right words that you have to write them down.
Your bravery taught us how to cope with our daily challenges. You will always be remembered as a hero.
Alex here never called his friend Adrian, and Adrian here never called him Alex.
I call him Bonzi, he called me Leon.
Just the way it was between 2 buddies who became fast friends in high school, sometimes hanging out along Ellicott Creek, having late-night conversations beneath the trees.
We go to Amherst State Park up the way, have bonfires. We would go to Glen Park.
It wasn't until 8 years after graduating from Amherst High School that Adrian Bonzi joined the Army.
He was in a bit of, depression, not knowing where to go in life. So he snapped out of it one day and said, you know what, I'm going to do this not only for myself, but for the greater good of our country.
Bonzi joining up made perfect sense to Leon.
And that was his charismatic role. He's a natural-born leader. He would always be dedicated and devoted to do something.
Leon knows in his heart that Bonzi died doing what he loved, serving the country. But that doesn't make it any easier.
At 4 a.m. Thursday morning, my closest friend George Fallon called me saying Bonzi got ran over. He's dead. I didn't realize it at first, but when I came awake at 9 a.m., I realized it was real. I cried for about maybe 20 minutes from all the great memories we ever shared together.
Many made here, where he'll perhaps return to remember his friend and recall the late-night conversations whispered beneath the leaves of the trees.
Fly high above. God bless.
Number one, I want to start over. I want to start over with the concept, and I've led with this since day one, is that officers need to lead.
And with that, Fire Commissioner Daniel Pizarro issued a department order to suspend the practice of acting out of title.
Walk me through what that means.
Acting out of title is the official human resources language, and what that is a person of a lower rank acting up to a higher rank.
So if division chief called in, someone kind of steps up and acts as that, as
yes,
the boss, so
yes,
to speak.
they would act up.
How widespread was that? Is that something that might happen at a station house daily across the city?
It could, yes. It was a standard practice.
It dates back to the mid-1980s, where a union contract allowed for the practice. So why is Commissioner Pizarro suspending the practice except for specific scenarios?
I want my officers to be in positions to be able to operate where they've been trained and to exercise the skill set that the city has invested in for them.
The commissioner implied during our interview that the practice is perhaps happening too often. In his department order issued on May 29th, Commissioner Pizarro said his decision, quote, is intended to bring control and consistency back to a practice that has become too informal in certain areas.
You know, several years ago, the city argued in arbitration and that this was permissible and it's something that can happen. That was under a different time, different administration, different commissioner. Why did you believe that you wanted to make that change?
Yes, I see both points of view. I see why it was permissible, and it is still permissible. Within my order, there are parameters as to when that'll be activated. But again, to corral all of that, the concept behind this whole thing is to give officers of the rank that they've studied for, that they've prepared for, that the city has invested money into, to give them opportunities to develop their skill set.
Firefighters acting out of title has been cited as something that was occurring during critical incidents for the Buffalo Fire Department, including the fire that killed Jason Arno in March 2023.
Several of the recent critical incidents, including Jason Arno, there were people acting out of title, correct? If I'm understanding some of the legal proceedings that have gone on in some of the state and federal reports for critical incidents, that has been part of the equation, so to speak. Is that right?
Correct, yes, in many aspects. And I'm very careful to say that it is not the acting component in itself that caused the detriment, but throughout national reports, through our own investigations, we found that that was a contributing factor, but that is not the reason why alone, or probably at all, that I've put this out.
Now that the order has been issued, what will happen if a superior officer calls in for the day or there's a general staffing shortage?
We have a battalion chief that called off. We will filter through the battalion chiefs that are available. Once there are no battalion chiefs available, then acting will be identified, and the division chief, per the parameters found in the 1984 collective bargaining agreement, will select an actor, a captain, to move up to that battalion chief. And there'll be informal introductions, expectations, things like that, just to make sure that the actor understands what's expected of them for the day.
So essentially calling somebody in who might be off, calling them in for overtime to fill that gap?
Yes.
But with the city in financial duress, Commissioner Pizarro says he's keenly aware that he has to balance department finances with public safety priorities.
I've thought about that significantly. And the question to shift the narrative becomes, is this a practice that the citizens of Buffalo deserve? Do they deserve proper leadership, continual leadership, and strong leadership in every position, particularly in an emergency services environment? And I say yes. So there will be an impact, and not only do I have those numbers, but there's also tracking measures in place so I can review it quarterly to figure out how to adjust.
It's probably one of the most trafficked intersections in the city of Buffalo.
As traffic speeds by, the former Volker's bowling lane site sits still.
The site itself was demolished. It just was not salvageable and was not really usable, unfortunately.
The 150-year-old bowling alley was a neighborhood staple. It was demolished last year after a judge ruled the building, which closed during the COVID-19 pandemic, a threat to public safety.
We see there being tremendous need for additional housing to serve all the businesses that are north in North Buffalo.
Connor Kenny is part of the development team planning to bring a 5-story, 230-unit building to the now empty lot.
We hope to have a restaurant space and some bowling lanes with something to pay homage back to the bowling alley that was there for decades.
He's been very open to trying to keep some historical respect for the neighborhood.
Councilman Joe Golombek says there had been several community discussions and possible alternatives before these plans were brought forth.
And one of the things that I always tell residents is, if not this, then what? And you could have, as an example, put a fast food restaurant in there. Many of the neighbors that I spoke to didn't want that either.
He's hoping more housing and recreational spaces will boost the local economy.
I think that having more density there will be helpful for the community.
With all the thousands of cars and trucks crossing the Peace Bridge throughout the day and night, some may think that the Custom and Border Protection officers in those inspection booths could be distracted and may think they could use some trickery to get something illegal through the busy border. However,
the highly trained officers here at the port that do the hard work every day, inspecting and talking to thousands of people, approximately 2,600 commercial truck drivers every day.
Now, we're told that the officers who work in those inspection booths get kind of a sixth sense, and they use intuition when they're talking to some of the drivers coming through, and they can get a feeling if something is just kind of off and perhaps should be checked further. So that's what happened on Tuesday as a commercial truck pulled up and sharp-eyed officers spotted something with that truck's shipping manifest and sent the driver to the secondary inspection in the warehouse-style building.
In this case, it was manifested as a shipment of chocolate. It appeared to be sitting right on top of the regular boxes, and it didn't look as the other parts of the shipment did.
In those 56 boxes, officers say they found this: vacuum-sealed bags containing over 1,600 pounds of suspected marijuana, which then tested positive.
It had a street value of about $4 million.
Now, of course, marijuana possession has been legal in New York State since 2021, but
federally, marijuana is still illegal and not allowed to come into the United States from a foreign territory. So we're looking for all kinds of narcotics and threats.
And with those threats, illicit marijuana from unknown sources may have other dangerous or deadly substances mixed in.
It could have fentanyl in it.
The games are here and Silo City is ready to welcome the world.
It was great to get some help so that we can sort of do it in a bigger way to sort of make this stuff happen.
How big?
And we've got the huge projection going up on Marine A, which will be we'll do that 5 times, and the first one's going to be on Friday today.
Yes, that big.
The screen is probably about 80 feet by 100. We've done it before with our football. This will be the first time we do it with soccer.
But the larger-than-life projection of the beautiful game on these beautiful pieces of Western New York ingenuity is just part of the celebration that's about to get going later today. They plan to kick off World Cup 2026 with a parade of players from their Buffalo Mandaleo Soccer Club, a team that provides a place for refugees and disadvantaged children to participate in soccer right there at Silo City.
When we started the program about 4 years ago, we had maybe 12, 13 kids, and now we're up to 70, 80.
And after that parade of players, the site will be a potpourri of soccer and international offerings, from special cuisine served up at Duende to cultural programming and soccer clinics put on by Buffalo Professional Soccer.
It's around the world. I mean, this is something that everybody likes to participate in, and the World Cup is the epitome of watching soccer.
And watching in the middle of a spot that has been reborn and has drawn attention from history and architecture buffs from around the globe.
And it's exciting to see the transformation and how these things become a part of the fabric of the community, not only of Buffalo, but the greater community. Architecturally, we've got visitors from around the globe, and just to look at these titanic concrete structures.
On your side, Pete Gallivan, Channel 2 News.
As Buffalo's Juneteenth festival marks its 50th anniversary, organizers are focused on the next generation.
Juneteenth is their festival. It's our festival. It's the community's festival. So we want to make sure that the youth know that.
Shola Clark says celebrating 5 decades of history also means creating space for young people to help shape the future. That's why she created the Youth Empowerment Zone, a new area designed for people ages 14 to 25. The celebration begins Friday night at MLK Park with an exhibition basketball game from 5 to 8.
I'm a single mother of 2 children. I have a connection and understand what our kids need, the issues that they face in the community regarding peer pressure and workforce opportunities. So this year with the Youth Empowerment Zone, we're going to have different organizations, including Urban League, the Buffalo Health Equity, Best Self, Workforce Buffalo.
Then on Saturday, the Youth Empowerment Zone will be filled with activities designed to connect young people with both resources and fun. There will be an entertainment stage, a TikTok challenge, arts and crafts, a video game truck, a 360 photo booth, and free haircuts. The addition comes after community leaders called for more opportunities for teens and young adults at the festival. Buffalo Common Council member Zanetta Everhart says organizers delivered.
It's really just about making sure we're providing everyone in our community an opportunity to participate in Juneteenth. And so now I see that they have taken on that task, providing a space for our young people to congregate, things that are age appropriate for them to do at the Juneteenth festival.
For Walter Ball, the leader of the nonprofit I Am Youth, the new space is about making sure young people feel seen, heard, and included. His organization will have youth members and volunteers taking part in the festival.
Sometimes the youth can feel like it's nothing for them to do, right? So this is epic right here to be able to provide an area for the youth to be able to come. What better opportunity to have than the Juneteenth to be able to sit down, talk to the youth, and let them know that not only do we hear y'all, but we're here to help y'all too.
As Buffalo celebrates 50 years of Juneteenth, organizers say the milestone is about more than looking back. It's about investing in the young people who will carry the festival's legacy forward.
We want to encourage our youth and inspire them, build them up to be leaders so that they can come along and be volunteers, because Juneteenth is a volunteer-based organization. So we need the youth to join us as we move forward to 50 years.
Organizers say the goal isn't just to give young people something to do this weekend. It's to help develop the volunteers, leaders, and community advocates who will guide Buffalo's Juneteenth celebration for the next 50 years.
You may not necessarily understand the gravity of it right now because you're so young, but when you get older, you'll be able to look back and say, well, I was a part of the 50th, or I went to the Juneteenth when I was such and such age, and feel like a great sense of accomplishment, and that you was able to contribute back to the history of not just the Juneteenth, but the city of Buffalo.